back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about the 10 best horror movies of 2024 so far. And let's get to the list.
Get out there, Mr. Midnight, and you knock him dead.
Late Night with the Devil is a supernatural horror movie. Written, directed, and edited by Colin and Cameron Carnes. It stars David Dastmalchian, Lauren Gordon, and Ian Bliss. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms.
Please welcome Dr. June Ross Mitchell and Lily, the young subject of the book, Conversations with the Devil.
This was such a fun, creative, entertaining movie, and it was really a throwback for me, and I know a lot of people of my age group, because we grew up with a lot of these talk shows that were a big deal back in the day, with Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Jay Leno, etc. It was just a big deal growing up. They're not quite as big of a deal now, but it's really fun to see something like this that uses that in a found footage-ish type of way and introduces this demonic evil entity into the scenario. I just love the look, the style, the pacing. There's comedic elements to it. It gets really creepy at times. Just a very cool movie. And David Dastmalchian is fantastic in this. And it's really nice seeing him get in a leading role because so often he plays a side character and he does those so well. Like, all his character acting abilities are amazing, but it's just nice to see him as the centerpiece of a movie. So I had a great time with this, and it's one that I definitely think you should check out. Abigail is a horror movie directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette. It stars Melissa Barrera, Catherine Newton, and Dan Stevens. After a group of criminals kidnap the ballerina daughter of a powerful underworld figure, they retreat to an isolated mansion, unaware that they're locked inside with no ordinary little girl.
I think she knows something.
Guys.
This is another very fun one, probably the most fun so far this year as far as in the horror genre. I'm just a big fan of the directors of this and their style. They also did Ready or Not and the last two Scream movies. They just have this way of doing horror that's just a blast. But I really liked the look of it, the style of it, the characters involved. It's just a good time, not one to overthink. It's definitely not a real deep story or anything like that. It's a lighthearted, fun popcorn comedy kind of horror movie. But I love a good vampire movie when they're done right, when they get bloody and creepy, and even though there's some humor mixed into this, it definitely goes for it and gets brutal at times as well. This is a real banger that definitely deserves to be on this list. Out of Darkness is a British horror thriller, directed by Andrew Cummings in his feature-length debut. It stars Sophia Oakley-Green and Chuku Madu. In the Stone Age, a desperate group of early humans band together in search of a new land. But when they suspect a malevolent being is hunting them, the clan are forced to confront a danger they never envisioned. This is one that is really flying under the radar. I have heard almost no one talk about it, and it's very creepy, very uncomfortable. It's well done, beautifully shot, well directed. The cast do a fantastic job. The thing about it is, it's not a real true normal horror movie in a way. Like, it kind of leads you one way and then subverts that and does something different. And I think that's what maybe have turned enough people off that there just hasn't been a buzz about this. But I'm hoping that eventually, if it drops on one of the streaming platforms and more of an audience get a chance to see this, they'll start to appreciate it. Because I'm a huge fan of the History Channel. I love historical documentaries and things like that. And this feels almost like something that would be on the History Channel. It's just does get dark, does get bloody, and very horror as well. It's one of those films that if you just go in with no expectations, I think you'll really enjoy it. So definitely add this one to your list.
What happens when it takes on a life of its own?
Stopmotion is a British live-action animated horror movie. Co-written and directed by Robert Morgan, it stars Aisling Francosi, Tom York, and Carolyn Springle. A stop-motion animator struggles to control her demons after the loss of her overbearing mother.
She's scared. There's someone coming.
This is one that I feel like is being criminally underrated so far this year. I'm not sure why exactly that is, why there hasn't been more buzz. I loved this movie. It's dark, it's gritty, it's uncomfortable, it's unique because it takes stop motion and makes it absolutely terrifying. It's so cool to me because it feels a lot like those early Tool videos where you just have these claymation figures, but they're just gross and uncomfortably disturbing. I mean, especially in this, dude, they're like little meat guys. They get just slimy and nasty and just make your skin crawl. So I don't know if it's too weird for some people, it's too slow and artsy, I don't know. But for me anyway, I think this movie is badass and one I highly recommend. Immaculate is a psychological horror movie. Directed by Michael Mahone, it stars Sydney Sweeney, Alvaro Morte, and Benedetta Porcerelli. It follows a woman of devout faith who is invited to reside at a picture-perfect Italian convent, but slowly realizes the convent harbors terrifying secrets.
It's a miracle. You are with child.
I really love the buzz that this little movie has generated this year. A lot of it's Sydney Sweeney, and she's the it girl in a lot of ways right now. But also, this movie fucking goes for it. It gets savage, it gets brutal. There's some gory elements, but more than that, it's just dark and creepy and very uncomfortable. And Sydney Sweeney really gets to show off her acting chops in this because she's known as this beautiful, sexy, temptress, whatever, but I don't think we've seen enough of what she can do as far as skill in acting. So to get to see her really go for it and push it to level 10, especially towards the end of this movie, was just awesome to see. It's also really great to see Neon getting some exposure with this one and then now most recently Longlegs, because they've kind of been overshadowed as far as the art house kind of production company by A24. But silently, kind of quietly in the background, they've been doing a lot of bangers for a number of years. This is just the year where they're finally starting to get some recognition. It's also very cool to see something do a nunsploitation kind of thing, something we haven't really seen since maybe the early 80s, late 70s, and do it in such a cool, gritty way. Either way, it's definitely one of my favorites this year and absolutely deserves to be on this list. A Quiet Place Day One is a post-apocalyptic horror movie. Written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, it's based on an original story by John Krasinski and is the third installment of the Quiet Place film series. It stars Lupita Nyong'o, Joseph Quinn, and Alex Wolff. A woman finds herself trapped in New York City during the early stages of an invasion by alien creatures with ultra-sensitive hearing. This is such a well put together movie and really kind of surprised me because going in, I just kind of felt like, do we really even need another Quiet Place movie, especially, a prequel type of situation? But it surprised me because it does deserve to be seen. It is extremely good. The only problem with it, and the only reason it's not higher on the list for me this year, is because we've already seen these creatures. And so, as well as it's done, as well as these creatures are put together, as cool as it is to see them hunting in packs and in a big city and all that, it doesn't feel as surprising and shocking as, of course, the first one did. The other complaint I had is that it doesn't really move along the story. It doesn't give us anything on the aliens and let us know more about what's going on with them. But the thing that this movie does so well and absolutely shines at, besides the production, because the production quality of this is fantastic. The directing is amazing. Everything about the technical elements of this are phenomenal. But what to me makes this a really good movie is the acting and the story. The characters in this are fantastic, and a lot of that is just the performance of Lupita Nyong'o. She is just incredible to me in everything I've seen her in, and just continues to impress me no matter how many times I've seen her kill it. She just always brings it. So I'm trying to be careful on how I talk about this because I don't want to spoil anything, but there are some really interesting elements to do with life and death and what you would do in a situation like this. It comes from a different angle, and I found to be very captivating and thought-provoking. So is it my favorite of the year? No, but it's still a great movie and one I think is definitely worth your time.
It's not real. 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 Who said that?
This is very real.
The First Omen is a supernatural horror movie, directed by Arkasha Stevenson and written by Stevenson, Tim Smith, and Keith Thomas. It serves as a prequel to The Omen from 1976. It stars Nell Tiger-Free, Sonia Braga, and Ralph Ineson. The story follows a young American woman who is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church. But she encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate.
You must be very careful, Margaret. Bad things will start to happen around her. Evil things.
This was the real shocker for me so far this year. I was totally blindsided by this. I saw this, coming up, and I was just like, whatever. Why do we need another Omen movie? The last couple of them have not been good. It's not even a franchise that I would say I even love. Like, the original Omen is okay, but I think I saw it too late in life, and it's a bit slow, and it just never really grabbed me, not like other classics have. So either way, I just didn't see any reason why this needed to happen, and the trailer looked interesting. It had a good look to it, but I was like, whatever. But I see every horror movie that comes to theaters, and I was just shocked because this movie is amazing. Yeah, it's very, very similar to Immaculate. They both have a lot of the same bone structures, but I do think they both have their own thing that makes them special in their own way. But this is incredibly well shot, well directed. The story is this cinematic, dark. It feels like a real Hollywood movie, like something that we kind of have lost in a lot of ways. And I found that to just be very impressive because it's hard to really have a polished Hollywood level kind of movie, but also a gritty, dark, uncompromising, unapologetic, savage movie at the same time, and this does a great job to me of mixing those two. I'm honestly such a big fan of this movie that by the end of the year, this whole list will be different because one, there's other movies coming out like Alien and others, but also just the way I feel about these, especially if I rewatch a few of them, and especially this. I had a hard time not putting it higher on the list because I really am still just blown away on how good this movie is. A lot of that's Nell Tiger-Free. She just kills this role. So believable, so emotional. You just can't keep your eyes off of her in this. And it goes for it. I mean, there are some scenes, especially the one birthing scene, that are just insane. Jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, especially on the big screen. So by the end of the year, I'll be shocked if this isn't still one of my favorites. Either way, if you have yet to see this, do yourself a favor and make it the next thing that you watch. Maxxxine is a slasher horror movie, written and directed by Ty West. It's the third film in the X film series and stars Mia Goth, Kevin Bacon, and Carlo Esposito. It follows Maxxxine, who was the lone survivor of the bloody incidents from X, and follows her as she continues her journey towards fame as an actress in 1980s Los Angeles.
My employer is a very powerful man.
The past ain't finished with you. It's gonna keep knocking at your door.
At the time of recording this, it's only been a little over a week since this came out, so it's still very fresh in me. By the end of the year, this may be higher or lower. It's hard to say. This whole list, it's kind of just put in a sort of order, but I'd be lying if I said I feel real confident about any of these placement. I do feel like all 10 of these are my favorites this year, but just as far as the order of them, it's gonna definitely change. But I had so much fun with this movie. I love the 80s vibe, the look of it, the style of it, the sleazy street quality. It brought me back to an earlier time, even though I didn't live in LA or any of that. Just, I remember the 80s very well. I was a little kid, but still, I remember the 80s, and this does a great job of showing it. What I really like too is that a lot of these movies recently that have been doing these time periods and showing the 80s, they show it in a way that is like someone that is younger now, the way they picture what the 80s would have been like, not what the 80s actually were like. This feels like what the 80s actually were like. The good, the bad, the weird, just all of it, and I think it's fantastic. And once again, Mia Goth just absolutely kills it in this role. Now, I'm not gonna say which is my favorite. I keep hearing a lot of people saying, you know, out of the three, X, Pearl, and now Maxxxine, you know, which one is their favorite. I don't really get that logic, because to me, each one is very different in its own way, but still part of this one puzzle, this one narrative that Ti West has put together. And so I can't really pick one, because there are things about each one of them that I love. They're just unique in their own way. But this really has that 1980s entertainment slasher kind of vibe to it, the detective thrillers. It interweaves a lot of like TV from that era, movies from that era. There's a lot of cheesiness in this, a lot of tonal things in this that I think a lot of people may not get or enjoy or appreciate. And that's fine, but at least for me, it hit really hard and I had a blast with it. And it's cool because there's a buzz now after Ti West came out and said he has ideas for a fourth film. So fingers crossed that we get another film in this, because I just love seeing Ti West do his thing, and especially if Mia Goth's in it, because she's just such an incredible actress. So where this will end up by the end of the year, I don't know, but I do know I love this movie, and it's definitely one of my favorites.
I'll be waiting.
Longlegs is a crime horror thriller. Written and directed by Osgood Perkins, it stars Micah Monroe, Blair Underwood, and Nicolas Cage. In pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree.
And on his horns he wore 10 crowns. And on each head was written a blasphemous name.
This came out 3 days ago at the time of recording this, and I was able to see it for a second time last night. And this movie is just brilliant, but it also is seeming to be one of the most polarizing, if not the most polarizing this year, because you have camps of so many people saying they're disappointed and it was way overhyped and the hype train ruined it for them, or it's just not that good, it's not that scary, whatever. I get all that. I just never buy into the hype. Part of it is just doing what I do, being around it all the time, hearing from so many different people, and just talking about movies so much, I've really become desensitized to it. I just kind of tunnel vision. I don't even really bother with trailers. I'll watch the first trailers of movies and then that's it. Like I saw the first one for this and refused to watch any of the more recent trailers. I just like to go in fairly blind. And so you got to take that into consideration when I say how much I love this movie, how brilliant I think this movie is. Because if you've heard all the hype and you're thinking this is going to be the best horror movie of the year ever, whatever, you might be disappointed. But if you just go into this and enjoy it for what it is and not what it's not, I think you're going to be really impressed with it because it is actually bone-chilling, creepy, uncomfortable. I don't know if I'd say scary because scary is so subjective, but this is definitely going to scare the shit out of some. Just, it's one of those things where it may not be scary at all to others. It depends on what your preferences are, what your life is like, the things that bother you. I mean, some people are scared of spiders. Some people have spiders as pets. And that's something you got to always keep in mind when it comes to stuff like this. But I would say it's definitely dark. There's this cloud, this like dark, ominous cloud that's ever present when you're watching this movie. The whole thing, the way the performances are done, there's a stilted, emotionless way that a lot of the characters perform, which adds to the uncomfortability of it. Nicolas Cage is just phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal in this. But so is Micah Monroe. She has this real weird, almost on the spectrum or emotionless kind of way of doing this role, and it really adds to the eerie qualities of it. But Alicia Witt is the one that's kind of been overlooked. I haven't heard enough people talk about her performance, but she is amazing in this, and I'm not going to give anything away. She does play a very important role in this, and what she does and how she performs this, very, very impressive. But it's well shot, well directed, cinematography is fantastic. It's really a well done movie. The only reason it's not my number one at this point is because there's only been one movie this year that I am still just processing. Like, it is still stuck in me and will probably never leave. But for me right now, this is a close second. So if you get a chance to go see this, definitely do it, because I think as long as you go in with tempered expectations, keep them in check, and just let it be what it is, I think you really could have a good time. The Coffee Table is a Spanish black comedy horror movie. Directed by Kay Casas, it stars David Pareja and Estefana de los Santos. Jesus and Maria are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have just become parents. As a symbol to shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table, a decision that will shape their existence.
Y les aseguro que esta mesa, por diseño y por su nivel, les va a cambiar la vida a mejor. Les va a aportar felicidad al hogar.
Holy shit, guys, I can't even convey how dark and twisted and uncomfortable this movie is. But it's one that just has got under my skin and stuck with me for months now. It's really flying under the radar, and I get it because it's as black and twisted and dark of a movie as you're gonna find. It's listed as a black comedy, but it's not a funny, laughing kind of comedy at all. It's a very twisted, macabre type of sense of humor that's gonna find this funny. So don't go into this expecting to laugh. It's not that kind of funny. It's that awkward kind of giggle as you're anxious about what's going to happen. But it is so impressively well shot, well put together. Everything takes place in mostly just this one location, but it never feels slow. You're constantly filled with dread and anxiety the entire runtime. And the big chunk of that is the performances. Their acting is just amazing. But the storytelling, the way it's written, the dialogue, everything is so natural and realistic. And that's a huge deal for what they're going through and for what all actually happens in this. But I can't say anything else because I don't want to spoil this, because if you know what happens in this, it really won't have anywhere near the impact on you. But be warned, this is a dark one. This is one that'll stick with you. This is one that'll probably make you extremely uncomfortable, but I do think it's phenomenally well done and very much under the radar. And by the end of the year, I think a lot more people will have this on their list. But that's my list of what I think are the 10 best horror movies so far this year. I really want to hear what you guys think. In the comments, tell me what your 10 are, or at the very least, what is your favorite so far this year? And keep in mind, this is just my opinion. Doesn't make it the right opinion. It's just my perspective on movies. I take into consideration my enjoyment level, as well as the skill involved, you know, the technical elements and all that kind of thing, and the impact it had on the horror community. I take all those things into consideration when I make a list like this. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or if you want to become a channel member and help support the channel that way, there's a button down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 20 of my favorite vampire movies of all time. And I'll see you guys next time.